Alright, let's begin with our first chapter in research methodology. Right, first chapter we will learn about introduction to research and what we want to understand what is research, why we need to do research, and characteristic of good research. Right, let's begin. So when doing research, right, you will imagine somebody in lab, right, doing a survey, doing a experiment, right. This is all of the example of research, and either doing a survey, questionnaire, or sitting down in front of the computer doing a simulation, right, doing observation, right, in the lab. Animal research also called as a research. Right, so what is research actually? Actually, research is a process of finding solution to a problem after targeted and systematic study and analysis of material and source. Means that research means we want to solve a problem. We have a problem, we want to solve a problem, then we need to do some research in to find a solution to solve a problem. Right, it help managers in, for example, in the company, it help managers in organization to make a decision at workplace. So for example, kalau dia ada business dia tak berapa okay, right, so the customer is not coming in, so what you need to do, you need to do a research why the customer is not coming in. So the finding the solution of the problem is called a research. Right, so it's also help identify where exactly the problem lies. So this is what we the definition of research. So the proper definition of research is the systematic process of collecting and analyzing information. Analyzing information known as data. Information known as data. So research is a systematic process. Systematic process means that it starts with the problem identification and what is the objective, what is the question, and how to do a research. What is a research process? Either we want to start collecting data, where is our population, what is our targeted sample, and how we going to select a sample. That is a systematic process. And then to collect and analyze information means that we want to analyze after we design a process, then we can analyze the data, which is information, in order to increase our understanding of the problem, right, of the problem that we are concerned into lah. So that is the proper definition of research. You can find the definition of research in Umar Sekaran books and Rajit Kumar. Right. So what research is and what is it? So research is based on the work of others. That's why we call it as research. We research of work of others. Right. It based on work of others means that you must refer to work that has been done to provide a basis of what you want to plan to do. So this is what we call as a literature review. So you need to do some literature review before you conduct your own research. And research must be replicated. It can be replicated. Means that what others have done, you should be able to do the same thing on that research. For example, let's say kalau you tengok people have done research on Alzheimer disease, right? You already find out what is the potential biomarker of Alzheimer disease. So you can do the same thing at others' place, right? It must be generalizable to other setting. Means that your result, maybe you're collecting the sample, or you're collecting data on the sample, your populated sample, right? So your conclusion about the sample should be able, your conclusion should be able to generalize to the population, the whole population. Let's say you collect data dekat UiTM Tapah, for example. So your result nanti, you should be able to conclude for the whole UiTM in Perak, right? So it should be generalizable to to other setting, right? It is based on the logical rationale and tied to the theory, means that you tak boleh simply create a theory for your own research. You need to base on rational logic, right? Your research should be logic and doable. Means doable means boleh dilaksanakan. Well, you boleh buat that research. Let's say for example, your research objective is to find the difference between A and B, right? So you should be able to do a comparison lah. That is a doable. Let's say you collect a data on A, you collect a data on B, and then you make a comparison using an independent sample t-test or so whatsoever, right? It should be doable. What is the research then tak boleh buat and not doable? Means that if your objective is to create awareness, right? So that is something not doable, right? Creating awareness something yang impossible to reach the 100% of the population. Maybe you can create awareness for one or two sample, but not the whole population. So avoid research that not doable. So the next is generate a new question. So your research is always generate a new question. It's actually a cyclical in nature lah. Means that you want to find out about A. So once you already found out about A, you need to create another question: how A will react to B, how A will react to C, right? That is generating a new question in research. And it's of course when you are generating a new question, it is incremental, right? So the work which opposite of all of this is not a research, right? That is basically the definition and the characteristic of the research, right? So why we need research? We need research for a tool for building knowledge. So we need to do a research to build a knowledge and facilitating a learning, right? Means to understand the various issues and increase public awareness. Public awareness here is not same as your objective to create a public awareness, right? Your objective of doing research should be should do something like you want to find the effect of A and B, you want to know the comparison between A and B, and so on. You must create a objective yang boleh measure. Yang tak boleh measure is not considered as a good objective. So we need research as an aid to a business success, right? We need to find out what is the strategies to increase our sales, what is the strategies for doing a marketing. Even you want to start up your business, you need to do some research, right? Some research, where is the best location to start your business, how to increase our sales, and what type of promotion you should give. That is the kind of research that you need to do in business. So we need research because it's a way to prove lies and to support truths, right? So we need research to prove whether the statement is lies, or this fact is lies, or this fact is true, and what this fact is support to what condition, right? That is the why we need research. So it means to find, gauge and size opportunity, a seed to love reading, writing, analyzing and sharing valuable information. This is something not very important, but when you involve with research, you should automatically love reading, love writing, analyzing and sharing valuable information, because that what research is, we do research lah. So we do research, we're going to read a lot, we're going to write a lot, we're going to do some analysis, right, and sharing valuable information in our paper, right? That is what we need research. And another one, Furthermore, kita ada beberapa lagi point why we need research. So benda yang sama lah. This one I repeat the same thing as previous. And we need to understand the problem. When we want to understand a problem or issues, that is why we need research. For example, let's say for our current issue is COVID-19, right? We need to understand where is the source of the disease, right? We need to find it. We need to research how the disease is separate to others. We need to do research, right? How to cure the disease, we need to do another research, right? How to create a public awareness, right? So that is how we need to do some research, how to do a public awareness. And we need research because to increase knowledge about specific inquiry by researcher to solve the encountered problem faced in any organization that seek for solution. And the most important thing is we need research to develop a new policy, right? We cannot simply for a politician, for a government management, right, or company management, right, to create a new policy is not simple as that, right? They need to do some research. What is the cause and effect? They need to do some SWOT analysis, strength, weakness, opportunity and support analysis, and threat analysis, right, to come up with a new policy, right? And we need research to provide knowledge and skill needed for manager in making efficient decision. This is very important thing, right? If you are an analyst in a company, you need to provide an evidence, to provide an evidence for the manager to make a decision. So you need to do some research. What is the cause and effect? If you do this, what is the possibility outcome, right? So it is very helpful in making a decision, right? Help to identify issue that require further investigation. So this is one of the important things that why we need to do research, right? So far, do you understand? Boleh faham, eh? So basically, what I provide information here, you need to do a lot of reading, right? So if you just attending my lecture today, so maybe some of you can get it, or some of you cannot get it. So what you need to do next is to do a lot of reading. What is the definition of research and why we need research, right? I believe that you already have the book Umar Sekaran and Ranjit Kumar, right? After my lecture, please do some reading, right? So let's move on to the next slide. Characteristic of a good research, right? So there are several characteristics of good research. First and most important thing is originate with a question or a problem. So a research should start with identifying what is the problem, what is the issue that we want to do a research. For example, a current issue is we want to find the cure for the COVID-19. So that is some of the issue. So how are we going to do that? So kalau kita tak cari the cure, what is going to happen? Right, it's going to worse all the population. The population will gone, right? So for example, we need to have you need to identify the issue or the problem. Right, this is a characteristic of good research. And then you need to require a clear articulation of a goal. So if you want to do a research, right, you should have an objective. Objective should be SMART. SMART means, let me write this one. SMART. Objective, Smart mean S means specific. S means specific. Specific objective. M means measurable. Right, your objective must be specific and must be measurable. Boleh diukur. Maksudnya, for example, you want to find a comparison between, you want to find the difference between A and B, right? So the objective is to compare the performance of A and B, right? There is a very specific objective. Measurable means you can measure the objective, means you can do a comparison A and B. You collect the data on A, you collect data on B, and do comparison whether A is high or A is low compared to B, right? And A means specific, measurable, achievable. Achievable means that you boleh capai that objective. We can do that objective. If you remember just now, in my slide, the characteristic of research is doable. You should be able to do that objective, to achieve that objective, right? And R means realistic. Means the objective should be realistic in nature, right? To achieve the objective, it should be realistic, right? For example, you want to create awareness in population, so that is not a realistic objective, right? Because to create awareness, we're going to cost you a lot, right? Realistic in your scope, basically. Kalau realistic in government scope, mean maybe creating awareness is possible, but in your scope, creating awareness something that impossible for you to do, right? If you want to find the effect of A and B, right, there's something that possible to do at your area, at your circle, right? So your objective should be smart. And last is timeliness. Timeliness means that you only have 6 months to do this, right? Not really 6 months. You only have basically 13 weeks to complete your research. So you should think something that you can achieve within 10 weeks. You can complete your research within 10 weeks or 8 weeks, right? The shorter the time is better. You have more time to do some writing, so some analysis and so on, right? So this is the basically the characteristic of good research, right? So it require a clear articulation of goal, right? And follow the specific plan or procedure. Means that you should have starting with the starting with the identification of the problem, stating what is your objective, what is the question that you want to answer, and start with the research methodology. So how to start with research methodology? You need to identify what is your population, what is your targeted sample, what is the inclusion criteria, what is exclusion criteria, and start with the sample size. How many samples you want to recruit? You need to do some calculation, right? After that, what you need to do? You're going to identify what is the measurement tool you want to do. Either you want to use a questionnaire, or you want to do a observation, or you want to collect data from a secondary source. What is a source of data, primary or secondary data? That is the plan that you're going to design. And then what's next? How are you going to do a data collection? Either systematic sampling techniques, or probabilistic sampling techniques, or non-probabilistic sampling techniques, right? So you need to plan, and then after you get the data, what you need to do, what is the analysis suitable to achieve that objective, right? If you want to do a comparison, what is the suitable statistical analysis, either linear regression or correlation, or independent sample t-test, or one-way ANOVA, right? You need to identify which method that suitable for your data to achieve your objective, right? This is a specific plan or procedure. This is a characteristic of a good research, right? Next is often divides main problem to sub problem, right? You can divide the main problem. For example, our population having issue with the pandemic, COVID. So what is the sub problem of that issue? Maybe the economy of the people is shutting down, right? Or maybe government have loosened a lot of money because of the COVID, spending a lot of money in health issues, lagi dalam ekonomi, benda lain semua kena shut down, and then they have no income. That is another sub issues, right? So we need to identify from the main problem to the sub problem, right? And it's a cyclical in nature. This is a characteristic of a good research. It should be able to, you start from a research problem, and then you're going to solve the problem, and you're going to go back to the research another question. So I will show you the cyclical process nanti lepas ni. And it guided by specific problem, question, and or hypothesis. You should have a problem, question, and hypothesis, same as the first one. So accept certain critical assumption means that in your research should have certain assumption. What is your criteria? What is your exclusion criteria and inclusion criteria, right? For example, let's say I want to study about Alzheimer's disease. What is the my issue is I want to know what is the risk factor of getting Alzheimer's disease, right? So I need to have some condition what is the required sample to recruit. For example, let's say Alzheimer's disease usually happen for the old people. So kita akan recruit old people with age more than 65 years old or 60 years old and above. Less than 60 years old, kita can exclude. Maybe you say that people with no heart condition, right? So you can exclude people with no heart condition into your sample. So you need to have a certain assumption and what you call inclusion criteria. Require collection and interpretation of data. This is what we have learned before in previous subject, such as STA 111, STA 210, right? Introduction to probability and statistics, right? You have learned sampling techniques, population, and so on. And you have learned in my statistical method, right? One-way ANOVA, t-test, linear regression, right? For example, so you need to know how to collect the data, right? Either using a primary data or secondary data. If you are using a primary data, what is the method of data collection? So either using probabilistic sampling techniques or non-probabilistic sampling techniques. You need to identify why you need to use a probabilistic sampling techniques and why you should use a non-probabilistic sampling technique. What is the effect of using probabilistic sampling techniques and non-probabilistic sampling techniques? So that is all the questions that you need to consider in your research, right? So this is basically a characteristic of good research, right? So this is another things. It's actually a repeated things from the previous slide, but I think this is good to go through one by one. So a characteristic of good research should be orderly and systematic, right? So a good research is orderly and is conducted in systematic way. I just repeat the same thing, right, in others form. This is a single most important criterion in specific scientific research. So remember, we are doing a scientific research. It based on professional issues. The fundamental purpose of any research is to resolve any current issues of the profession, right? So therefore, a good research must be based on the current professional issues. Kalau you based on the issues yang people not really care about, right? So there is a potential of your research yang maybe people will not see your research. Maybe there is no impact on your research, right? You should find something related to the current issues, right? So begin with a clear defined purpose, right? So basically benda yang sama I ulang. Good research is begun with a clear stated purpose. Only clear defined research with a clear purpose can be conducted in effective manner. If you don't have a clear purpose or clear objective, then you might not know where is your research is heading to, right? So maybe you will go to others around you, corner sana corner sini, baru you masuk dalam you punya objective, right? So you should have a very clear objective. Emphasize to develop, refine and expand professional knowledge, right? The main aim of any research is to develop the body of knowledge of a profession, to define the existing knowledge, right? So a good research should expand the body of knowledge, right? So kita tak boleh nak maybe we can support others' knowledge, but the good research from the existing body of knowledge, you should expand the body of knowledge. So directed towards development or testing the theories, right? For example, your research should be develop test of theories, means that you based on others research, right, that already develop a theories, you test the theories whether the theory is correct or not, right? It can be applied in this situation or that situation. You should be able to reconsider others type of situation to test the theories. And problem solving, right? First and most foremost important good research is finding the solution to existing problem, right? Finding solution means that, for example, current issue is COVID, pandemic COVID, right? So the issue is we want to cure the disease, right? We want to cure the people that infected with the disease. So how to cure? We need to find a cure, a vaccine. So how to find a vaccine? So we need to test from genetic perspective, from what do we call family history and so on. So test and semua test tu mesti lead to a solution, right? Come up with a solution. And dia nak keluarkan dalam satu solution tu pun mesti ada beberapa test. Let's say in medical, we have from starting with animal tests, and when we have success with animal tests, then we can start with a human test. Human test should have a variety of phase, right? Maksudnya phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 until phase 4, depend on that research, right? And then we need to wait on after effect, right? After effect of the drugs yang kita include dalam human bodies, right? So dia namakan clinical trial. Itu dalam bidang lab lah. Kalau in social study, maybe you can use social study using a questionnaire. So to develop a questionnaire itself require a testing, right? So for example, kalau you nak tanya berkenaan, for example, selalu yang student selalu buat lah, penggunaan mobile phone, right? So student prefer yang mana? Huawei ke, iPhone ke, right? So this is the past research lah kan. So what I notice is student is not focusing on the tool of measurement. Maksudnya questionnaire tu sendiri, dia suka-suka hati tanya soalan, right? Suka phone apa A or B, dia tak evaluate whether the question is good or fit to answer the objective. For example, yang boleh relate lah, right? Let's say you want to produce a thermometer, right? Before you sell the thermometer, right, you need to test whether the thermometer is working or not working, right? Same as questionnaire. If you are developing a questionnaire, you need to test whether the questionnaire is working or not working, reliable or not reliable, right? That is what we say is that re-evaluating our instrument tool, right? So the next one is dedicated to develop empirical evidence, right? The purpose of a good research is to generate empirical evidence, right? We want to find an evidence that concrete to support our conclusion and objective in logic and in process, right? A good research and successful research emphasize on objective, on logical process, right? So basically benda yang sama I ulang from the previous slide, right? So barriers in doing research, right? Time constraint, budget constraint, availability of the data, and nature of decision. Time constraint means that at your circle you have only 13 weeks to submit, right? Submit, means that you need to complete your research within 10 weeks or less than 10 weeks. So that is a time constraint. You need to think something that doable, realistic, measurable, and specific, right? Budget constraint. Some of the people, maybe a big company have no issue about budget in doing research, right? Maybe on your side you have some issue on budget constraint. So you need to think about doing research that will minimize your budget. Right? Don't try to do some research that require a lot of budget. So for example, at your area, I bagi example at your time, bila you kerja nanti, tak kisahlah, you need to do a budgeting lah. Either you want to do a questionnaire. If you want to do a questionnaire, what is the cost of doing questionnaire? You want to print out or you want to do a e-questionnaire? And if you want to do a e-questionnaire, then where is the platform you want to do? Do you need to invest on the marketing, advertisement? Right, macam you kalau guna Facebook punya platform, you want to get the target audience, so you need to invest some money, right, to reach your audience, right? This is a budget that you need to constrain if you are using questionnaire. If you want to do a experimental research, right, let's say for example you want to collect a temperature of people, age, at a specific age, right? So the tools that you want to use, right, the temperature tu macam mana you nak ambil kat mana, you kena beli berapa, what is your budget, right? Let's say you want to do a research that to measure the blood pressure, right? So blood pressure ataupun dia punya, let's say you nak buat research, nak kaji, the simplest thing is nak tengok kalau dia makan ice cream, cornetto contoh, for example cornetto, so lepas dia makan, dia punya gula dia banyak mana, sebelum dia makan gula dia banyak mana, you want to compare. Example lah, dia tengok dalam cornetto ice cream tu, okay, berapa banyak gula dia punya specification, so we measure before dia makan and after dia makan, betul tak dia punya gula tu naik banyak tu kah atau kurang banyak tu kah. So you want to do a comparison. So the tools yang you nak ambil tu, yang blood sugar punya test kit, so you kena beli, you tak boleh recycle pakai. Alright, and then before you nak buat research tu, you need to obtain ethics approval. So the cost of obtaining ethics approval is maybe will cost you 1 month. Right, it will cost you 1 month to go to the UiTM ethics committee, present your research. You want to do this, you want to do this, why you want to do this. So it will occur a lot of money and time. So you need to think about that. Right, availability of data. Right, so when you collect the data, senang nak dapat ke susah nak dapat? Right, contoh macam let's say I want to do a research on Alzheimer disease, right? So the availability of the data. So is it hard to get the data? Is it easy to get the data? Of course, it's hard to get the data because this is a confidential data. You need to go through to the hospital record department, getting the approval from the hospital, getting the approval from the government, the Ministry of Health, NIH, and getting the ethical approval. So it's going to cause you a lot of difficulty, obstacle tu banyak. So the availability of the data is limited for you, right? So the nature of decision, right? So is it easy to make a decision, right? So is it you make a decision based on your research? Have you considered others noise variable, what we call as a modified variable, a confounder, right? So this is a barriers of doing research. So you need to plan carefully when you want to do a research. Make sure these 4 things is in mind, right? When you decide to to choose a topic, make sure you are time constraint, right? You should consider time constraint, budget, availability of the data, nature of decision. Of course, when you decide to do something interesting research, for example, you nak cari berkenaan dengan COVID, right? So you want to find the COVID person, you nak test, nak tengok temperature. Is it possible to do that, right? It will cost you you will cost you a life, right? So you mempertaruhkan nyawa dekat situ kalau you nak COVID, right? So ataupun you nak cari something yang rare disease, right? Rare disease means something yang sukar nak carilah disease tu. Let's say smallpox ni dah lama dah habis, right? Maybe ada lagi, mungkin seorang dua saja yang ada, right? It's difficult lah. So make sure you consider all these 4 constraints. So research project, right? Remember later, you should start with thinking about your research project. So research begin with a problem. So start identifying the problem. So start reading a newspaper, start reading current issues, right? And bila you jumpa kawan you, right? You already create a group, right? So you create a group, discuss among your team member, and come up with each team member come up with one or two current issues, right? So you discuss whether is it possible to study about this, right? What is the budget issues? What is the time issues? Is it easy to get the data? What is the nature of decision, right? So identifying this problem can actually be hardest part of the research. This is the most hardest part of the research. Unless you already have the problem, then unless I give you the problem, then you proceed with that problem lah, and that is going to be very easy, right? In general, a good research project should address important question, advanced knowledge. You should have some advanced knowledge. Advanced knowledge here means that it does not necessarily you need to rely what you have learned previously. Means that, for example, in statistical method, right? For example, in statistical method, you have learned one-way ANOVA, independent sample t-test, linear regression, right? For example, when you have the data that require you to do something else, right? For example, you need to analyze data using a logistic regression. So you need to find out how to do a logistic regression. You need to understand how to do a logistic regression. That is the main thing in research. Right. For another example, let's say you want to study about the risk factor about Alzheimer disease regarding to the genetic problem, the genetic issues. So you need to dig out what is the genetic knowledge. Either you have mutation issues, or you have a transcriptomic issue, transcriptomic genes and protein issues, metabolomic issue, or cytokine issues. You need to study all the knowledge by yourself, right? You cannot rely on others. That is what we do on digging the knowledge, right? Okay, what is a bad research? Just now we already looked at what is a good research and what is the characteristic of good research. Now, what is a bad research? Bad research is opposite of what have we discussed before, right? And it looking for something when it's simply not, it's simply not to be found, right? Looking something that cannot be found. For example, at your area, your circle, you are looking into to find a potential vaccine. Of course, you don't have an expertise, you don't have lab, something that you cannot do, right? So something you cannot do is not doable. So not doable means a bad research. Good research should be doable. And plagiarizing work of others, this is the terrible issues, right? I remind you again, plagiarism is important issues, right? When you caught of doing plagiarism, you might be kena gantung satu semester or kena buang. Right, you need to be very careful about plagiarism. Plagiarism means you copy the work of others. Let's say you last semester punya kerja, you just copy, or you just ambil daripada mana-mana fakulti punya kerja, you just copy and you hantar. That is a plagiarism. This is a serious plagiarism yang tu lah. Right. Another plagiarism, right, means that for example, like let's say you want to do a literature review, right? You just copy exactly what is the word from the literature review tu, you just copy and paste into your research proposal. That is one of the plagiarism. So how to do that? You need to rephrase the word from the literature review and quote who is saying this. That is the good thing to do lah. You cannot simply copy and paste to your report. That is a plagiarism. Falsifying data to prove point. This is a terrible thing to do, right? I remember one research I've been done previously in a very good journal, which is Lancet, right? So they proved that vaccine apa tu? Yang bagi kat budak-budak tu, MMV kah? Muzzle, rubella, satu lagi apa tu? Dia prove kan kalau budak kecil ambil vaksin tu, dia akan lagi teruk. Right, they prove macam tu. So when we do a research, remember tadi research should be replicated. Mana tadi? It can be replicated. Maksudnya, kalau orang lain, you jumpa data macam ni, you buat conclusion macam ni, orang lain pun boleh buat conclusion yang sama. Right. So, kalau tak jumpa, means that something wrong with your research lah. So, bila isu ni, dulu lah, bila disiasat, maksudnya dia duduk depan komputer, just key in the data sendiri. Right? Dia tak collect data pun. So falsifying the data to prove a point is a bad research and is non-ethical, right? Non-ethical, right? yang boleh kena buang kerja, boleh kena macam-macam. Right? Misrepresenting information. This is another issues. Most of the people are doing this. Right? They got the data, they're misrepresenting the information. For example, as this. Dia kata sales meningkat. Kalau ni apa orang kata, misai panjang, kepanjangan misai meningkat, sales pun meningkat. So this is one of the misrepresenting information lah, right? So in statistics we have learned before, right? Correlation is not a causation, right? Correlation, kalau dia ada correlation, right, maksudnya di sini kita nampak this is a positive correlation between these two, doesn't mean this is related. It's just a statistical value saja. It doesn't mean it's related. Right? So in research, I'm going to train you. Whatever information you receive, you should dig first. Right? You should tengok dulu, research dulu, whether the information is correct or not correct. This is what we call as critical appraisal. Whatever information we have received, right, we should reinvestigate. We should reinvestigate where is the source, whether the information came in a correct manner. Where kalau macam contoh, let's say vaksin yang Rusia dah keluarkan hari tu kan, contoh, right? So we need to ask whether the vaccine produced by Russian, right, to dia go through tak the specific scientific process, ataupun dia ada skip. Kalau dia tak nak reveal, we cannot use that vaccine, right? That's why we are not using that vaccine lah. So setiap apa-apa maklumat yang kita terima, kita kena siasat dulu. That is research. Even though dalam literature review, dalam journal, right, let's say dia kata heart disease, people who smoke, let's say ada satu journal I baca, people who smoke will decrease the risk of getting Alzheimer disease. So siapa yang Alzheimer, yang mengidap Alzheimer, nyanyok ni, kalau dia smoke, dia akan mula ingat. Dia akan decrease the risk of getting Alzheimer disease. So we need to reinvestigate the statement. Either the process of getting the decision is correct or not, whether the sampling techniques used is correct or not, right? That is what we do. That's why we do research lah. So high quality research, a good research require the scope and limitation of work should be clearly defined. The process to be explained, it should be clearly explained so we can reproduce and verify by others, researcher, right? Thorough plan design, as I said before, we need to have a thorough scientific specific plan design of doing research, right? Where is our population? What is our targeted samples? What is the inclusion criteria, exclusion criteria? And what is data collection method? Right? Either you are using systematic sampling techniques or non-systematic sampling techniques, probability sampling technique, non-probability sampling techniques, and should be highly ethical, standard applied. So whatever research you want to do, you should go through to the ethics committee, right? So the ethics committee will approve or disapprove your research. Either your research, kalau you are doing research on involving human, you need to go through the ethic research lah, ethic committees, right? For example, let's say you want to take a blood of a human body, right? You need to go for ethic committee. You need to have a consent form, right? You cannot simply take a human blood. Or if you want to do a questionnaire, still you need to go through the ethic committee. But for the research proposal stage, you don't need to go there first. Nanti lepas ni, lepas you submit research proposal, Nanti kalau you nak proceed to the doing research, then you need to go to ethics committee. The proposal stage no need to do that. No need to do that. Right. So all limitation are documented. Maksudnya all the limitation, whether you can do this or cannot do this, why you cannot do this, right? You should document that. Right. Data should be adequate, analyze and explain. Right. So when you have a data, you should be able to analyze the data and explain the data in correct manner. And all findings are be presented unambiguously, and all conclusions be justified by sufficient evidence. Right. So this is a research process. This is cyclical in nature. Right. So if you have a Google, you have Umar Sakaran books, right? You can find. Or you can find it in Ranjit Kumar, right? But in this research process is available on Salkin books. You cari Salkin books satu. You ingat kan? I ada bagi dekat you list of books kan, recommended books. Ada satu buku nama Salkin, Salkind, right? So you cari buku tu, dalam buku tu ada tulis ni, right? So that's why in research you need to read a lot of books, right? So first research process should start with asking a question, identifying important factor, collect relevant information, testing hypothesis, working with the hypothesis, reconsidering the theory. Right? You're working the hypothesis and reconsidering the theory, asking a new question, asking the question. So dia akan ulang-ulang. It's a cyclical in nature. Right. So the last slide. Criteria for a good research process should be extremely cyclic process. This isn't a weakness of the process, but is a part of building in error correction machinery. So every time you do a research, the new question will appear. The new question will always appear. Right. So that is a good research. Kalau you create a research, you do a research, there are no question will ask. So that is a bad research. Right. A good research will generate a new question. So for example, let's say you want to find the comparison between A and B. So what next? Why A is higher than B? Contoh. That is another question. Kalau A higher than B, what is the effect of B when A is higher? Right. Ini kena tanya soalan-soalan lagi lah. Because the cyclical in nature of research, it can be difficult to determine where to start and where to stop. Right. So this is a criteria of good research lah. So next class we will look into a type of research, applied research and basic research. Right. Okay. So far, do you have any question? Any questions so far? Soalan?
No, sir.
Alright. If you don't have question, I think that's all for today. Right. Make sure you do a lot of reading on what we have discussed today. Right. And for the next class, make sure you read some about type of research on applied research and basic or fundamental research. Right. Basic and fundamental research, we read a lot on that one, and then we will discuss on research design as well, right? Next week, next class. Okay. So don't forget what we have learned today. We have learned what is the definition of research, and what is the characteristic of research, what is a good research, what is a bad research, and that is the thing that we have discussed today. Right. Very thorough we discuss, right? So I think that's all. Go do a lot of reading, right? This is very important. Do a lot of reading, create a group, discuss with your group what is the current issue, what is current issue you want to do, you want to research, right? So identify some of the objective, right? What is the objective, just to get the brief idea, right? Rough idea saja dulu. Kalau nanti kita akan discuss how to formulate a research question and so on, baru you akan refine balik your brief idea, right? The important things to do is to do, you go and seek for a problem. Bukan cari masalah di luar, cari masalah current issue, right? Alright, I think that's all. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum.
Thank you. Waalaikumsalam.